You in the pub, Victor?
I just arrived back from Japan yesterday, so yeah, I'm sitting at my golf club's member bar. It's close to my house. I thought I'd pop in here and sit here.
He's normally teeing off. What time are you teeing off this morning, Victor?
No, I'm not. No, I've got so much admin to catch up with after these 2 weeks in Japan. So
Right. Ricardo.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. And unfortunately, we can see you.
I'm a good-looking man, actually. I'm easily top 5 in this group. Right, welcome to Rivals, a special edition. We've got Victor Mapfield and the other guy with glasses, Sir John Kirwan. And, of course, joining us this week, we've got Jim Hamilton. So, Jim, we'll start with you. What do you think of the Lions first up?
I thought it was good. So there's been a massive build-up, as we know, or especially on this side of the world, a load of hysteria around what the squad's going to be, like how the selection was done. We saw the videos of the players being selected. And you have this kind of mass build-up, right? And I don't want to say that it was underwhelming, the first game against the Western Force, but I think having the easier province for them to start off the back of the game against Argentina in Dublin, which wasn't a great spectacle from a Lions perspective, it's good to see them up and running now. And I know that bigger games are around the corner. But yeah, it feels like now with all the big build-up, it's just good to get down to work, as it were, and get down to a bit of business, start looking at some of the combinations and start seeing some of the real quality come to the fore.
Jim, does it really matter? Like, if they win a series in Australia, no one will really care. Are these games really about Farrell understanding whether anyone who's not from Ireland is good enough to beat the people that are from Ireland to get in the side? I mean, is it a selection, let's not worry about the results? Or
what do you mean, JK? Tell me a little bit more. Be more specific.
Well, for example, Farrell has complete confidence in his Irish guys, right? So he's going to have a preconceived idea who he thinks can play at this test level. Are the results and the performance as a collective less important than him going, look, my Irish guy at centre or my Irish guy on the wing, let's try this English guy on the wing, or let's try this, well, there's not too many Welsh people in the team, but, is it really about understanding, he knows test rugby, understanding the selection?
JK, I know what you mean now. Naturally, right, and we've seen in years gone by when Warren Gatland was at the helm, right, with the backbone of the squad and the team and the test team being Welsh. If you think as well, 12 years ago when Brian O'Driscoll was dropped for the third test, the great Brian O'Driscoll, and there was the controversy around Jonathan Davis at the Fox starting. So I think naturally, I'm not saying there was bias back then because it turned out Warren Gatland made the right decision, but Andy Farrell knows his boys, right? He does. But you've also got to look at the Ireland squad. There's been a few cracks and a few creaks in and around the Leinster squad, if you want to talk about Ireland, but in some of the big games that Ireland have performed in. I don't want to talk about the quarterfinals. I don't need to. So there are clear voids within that Ireland squad, or that Andy Farrell would be looking to fill if he had the opportunity to pick players from other countries, as it were, for Ireland specifically. But I think on the Lions now, I think he knows and understands that it is the Four Nations. And I know Wales have only got one now in Jack Morgan because Thomas Williams has had to go home with injury, which is a real shame. But it's undeniable, though, a lot of the Ireland players are the best players in the world. Like you look at the likes of Joe McCarthy, for example, if he was a kind of a 50-50 going in, because you've got an Ollie Chesham who's been really good for England, and you've got even the likes of James Ryan. I know he's Irish as well, but off the back of his performance, it's like, right, okay, well, he's probably our guy. There'll be players up for debate around maybe the loose end. Ellis Genge has been brilliant. He's a kind of natural leader, a big voice within that. Is he a 50-50 with an Andrew Porter, for example? Would he then favour an Andrew Porter because he's Irish, or an Ellis Genge because he's a leader? But I think naturally, JK, the makeup of this Lions team is going to have a big Irish influence. Dan Sheehan's going to be a starter at hooker. He's got the leadership credentials as well to have that. We mentioned Joe McCarthy. It'll be interesting to see how Tyke Furlong comes through, because he's been injured all year and he's nowhere near back to his best yet, but he's going to get that opportunity. The talk of Jack Conan at number 8, does Henry Pollock make that position his own because he offers something a bit different? But I think, and you'll know as a coach, you'll want experience in that position at 8. Josh van der Fleer at 7, the number 7's up for debate as well. Jamison Gibson-Park is nailed on at 9, so it'll be good to see how his combination with a Finn Russell goes, because it will be him and Finn Russell. And then the talking point over this part is around the back three and whether or not Hugo Keenan gets back from injury and gets back to his very best. But also Matt Hansen is a big fan of him. But then you've got Tommy Freeman as well, who's been standout for England, and the centres as well. Like Gary Ringrose is one of Andy Farrell's boys, isn't he? But Hugh Jones has the attacking threat. Sione Tuipulotu starts at 12 for many people, but we know that Bundy Aki's quality as well. So there is question marks and there is conversation around some of the players, JK. But I think you'll know, having been a coach as well, you'll go with what you know and who you trust. And I think we will see a big Irish kind of spine to the team.
Hasn't it been good? I think from Andy Farrell, he's really mixed up the combinations. If you think about Hugh Jones, Tuipulotu hasn't played together. I mean, Tuipulotu with Ringrose, Bundy with him. Now Hugh Jones with Bundy. And in the forwards as well, loose forwards, mixing them up, giving them opportunities with other players. So I think it's actually been very good, and it can be good for the squad as well, so that players play together. They get a feel for each other. You can see how different combinations work, because it's always easy to go back to the tried and tested. But isn't that what British and Irish Lions is about? If there's special players, to put them together and to see new magic to be made on a British and Irish tour.
A combination's a thing now, Jim and Victor. That's what I've been sort of pondering over the last 24 hours, right? Because in my day, when you knew, like, I knew my centre inside out, right? So I could just about run blindfolded. But now you're seeing multi-positional plays. You're seeing they're talking about Rico Ioane playing on the wing this week. Players are playing in different positions. So Victor, like, if you've been locking with your South African lock and then you go to the Barbars and find someone else and you've got 2 weeks to sort stuff out, I mean, is it a real issue now, or a combination's just a thing of the past and these players are good enough to adapt?
I think they can probably adapt. Yeah. I think especially the top class players, I've seen it with the Barbarians. I mean, you put a Farida Pri and Matt Gito next to each other, and it was just magic. It just worked. Everything was just fluent. It looked like they've played together for 20 years. And I think if you've got a certain type of player, let's say Hugh Jones, he likes to play someone that runs hard. He likes to play with someone that can put him away, take the ball to the line, give him options on the line. So if another player that hasn't played with us but have the same qualities, then I think they do play together. Same in the locking combination. Some of us don't like the physical stuff. We need someone that's physical that plays with us. Understand? So I think it's just that combination of knowing the strengths of the player and helping them with the weaknesses as well with the combination that you pick.
I think the biggest combination, one that needs to stay fit and they need to get right, is around 9-10. So Jamison Gibson-Park is key to how Ireland specifically and Leinster attack. He's one of the best scrum halves in the world. But then you've got Finn Russell at 10, who is and holds the keys to the attacking kingdom for Scotland and probably how the Lions want to play. So, JK, they need to get that 9 and 10 right, because if you have two, let's call them alphas in their roles, and they want to control the attack, whereas you look at Ireland, since Johnny Sexton's left, they've been mixing their 10 in Jack Crowley and Sam Prendergast, and Jamison Gibson-Park has basically been running the show. So he controls the runners off 9. He controls the direction of what they want to play. Whereas for Scotland, Finn Russell does that completely. He is the master when it comes to that. So they're the combinations. I think the other ones, the conversation is around the centre partnership, because of the way that Hugh Jones plays, but he needs, like Victor said, probably more of a bull inside him as a 12. And Sione plays a little bit more than Bundy with the ball in hand. But I think the rest of the combinations, you are right. But I think the back line specifically and how they want to play against Australia, they need to get that partnership of 9 and 10 right first. And then I think the centres and the back three, because there's a few positions there that are up for debate, I would say.
Finn Russell's a great conversation for me because I absolutely love him. You hear all these coaches talking about play what's in front of you, and then they normally play by colours, right? But Finn Russell, tap and go the other day against the Western Force, great decision, saw the defence wasn't organised. Is that going to win test matches for the Lions? Is that going to scare Farrell, or is he going to be excited by that?
Well, again, like Victor, I spoke to Ardie Savea, and we were talking about how the differences in Ireland playing at Leinster and Munster for him compared to South Africa. And he said that how strategic and how much strategy is involved in the Ireland setup, which it is in most teams, right? And in South Africa, your point of difference is actually probably been able to move away from that strategy and having out and out brute force and quality across the pitch. But that then comes to, if Andy Farrell wants to play that strategic way and is heavily set up around strategy and around pods and around kicking percentages and around your scrum half, and then you've got Finn Russell who literally plays what he sees. Yeah, he can fit within structure, and he's a lot better at that. He's been at Bath under Johan van Gram and fitting in with that structure with quite a dominant scrum half in Ben Spencer inside of him. And there's a lot more kind of strategy involved, the week in, week out, and the quality of players that Bath have got and how he brought them in. But like you said, JK, I think if Finn was a couple of levels below when it came to quality and played how he played, I imagine every coach would be tearing their hair out, right? Because he's tapping and going, crossfield kick off the cuff. He's throwing intercept passes, which he does in big games and manages to bounce back. But Johnny Sexton's in the camp as well, who's a heavily structured player, is an Andy Farrell's guy. Finn got interviewed before the first game, and they said, "Oh, how's your relationship with Johnny Sexton?" And he gave a kind of wry smile, like, it's been okay. I speak to Johnny a little bit, but you do wonder whether or not, I don't mean personally, I mean professionally, whether there's a conflict in how they see the game. So it's going to be an interesting one. But if not Finn Russell, then who else can they go to? Finn Smith is a more, would fit within what you would see as an Andy Farrell strategy. But I think that Finn Russell is quite a distance ahead when it comes to out and out quality and a proven test performer.
Yeah, JK, I think I know Johan van Graan really well. He loves structure, but he loves within his structure to have a 9-10 that can make decisions at the line under pressure. If you look what Ireland has probably been missing in the last 2-3 years since Johnny Sexton is not there, is that guy being in that position, getting the ball and making good decisions under pressure. And I think that's what Finn Russell brings to the game. I mean, he takes the ball very flat. He goes to the line. He's always looking for opportunities, but he can also play the pressure game. We saw with Bath. I mean, they were probably the one team that really played that pressure game, that got in the right areas of the field. But again, even within that structure, they were never scared to take a quick tap, or if something was on, to play that out of the 22. And I think that's what you want. Within structure, you need good players at 9 and 10 that can make good decisions under pressure.
And just one last thing on Finn as well. When it comes to defensively, he is one of the best defending tens that's played the game. Very brave, a great chop tackler. And again, this isn't me speaking bad about any players that have played before, but if you look at Sam Prendergast, for example, and you look at even Johnny Sexton to a degree, or some of the other world-class tens that we've seen, Andy Farrell hasn't had the luxury of having a defensive 10 like Finn Russell, which a lot of people forget as well. And as we know, the Australians are a lot more physical now at how they play with the ball at the line and down that channel as well.
For the first time ever on this show, you said earlier, "I know what you mean, JK." So those are the first time those words have been uttered.
I should have said "sir" at the beginning. It would have added more weight.
I just want your thoughts, everyone, on Henry Pollock. Came down here with big raps, and everyone talked about him. I think for the opposition teams and opposition fans, he's going to be a little bit annoying. He's just got that personality about him, but does special things on the field. So, what was your thoughts on him at international level?
I heard or read or whatever Sir Ian McGeechan talking about him not being ready, and he's one of our elders and one of the most astute rugby people in the world. And I agree. He's possibly not ready for the 15, but he's certainly ready for the 23. When was the last English loose forward that you saw that had the acceleration of a back, can sidestep, can chip kick? I remember back to Ardie Savea. Ardie Savea was him and not making the side from the 15's point of view, but they were bringing him on, and he's X factor. I think against Australia, he needs to be on the bench. Is he going to make a mistake? Possibly. Is he not going to have the tackle count of another loose forward? Yeah, But you bring him on as an impact player, man, he's going to really put some fear into the defence. So while he might not be ready for the 80 minutes as a grinder, I'd have him definitely on the bench.
See, John would like him in his bomb squad, coming off the bench, making a difference. But I think that's what the game is about these days. It's about 23 players. How do you use them to the best advantage to the team? And I'm with John. So I don't think we'll see him in a starting lineup. I think when the pressure's on, when the big physical hits are there, he's probably not the best yet, although he's brave as well. But when the games open up, it's so nice to see him to come in, looking for the ball, getting that offloads going. And it's probably the same as Ardie. I still think Ardie is also better off the bench. You've just got these certain players that's got something that you want to put on the field once the game has opened up.
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone's talking about Henry Pollock, and on the podcast we were talking about kind of outside bolters, if you want to call them that, a few weeks before the squad was picked. And Henry has just turned 20 years old, and I said, look, this lad's going to go. Because of all the stuff that you've just said, JK, his speed with ball in hand, his acceleration, his footwork. Forget the circus around him and the social media stuff and all this. Let's call it superficial just for now, because we're talking about the British and Irish Lions playing a test match against Australia. Forget about that stuff. If you just looked at the out-and-out quality of what he puts on the pitch, like Leinster was when he really took off, because he played in a semi-final away from home against basically the Ireland back row and carved up. He scored a try from basically the halfway line, split 3 international defenders and went round Sam Prendergast to score. You had all the celebration, all of that stuff, and whether you like that or loathe that, it doesn't matter. It's important for the game, growing the game and all this. But if you were to look at the out-and-out quality of the kid, every time he's been given a task, he's delivered. And like JK said, there's errors in him, and there will be errors, and he's made errors. He got stripped in the Argentina game at the end of the game, and that was the end of the game. Missed a tackle in that game as well. If you're going to start picking things out, but the fact that he keeps turning up, he keeps getting the ball in hand, like the little nuances of he made a break in the first game against the Western Forces, the chip and chase, and got held 8 meters from the try line, but he had I suppose the athleticism, but also the thought process to get back up on his feet, leave the ball on the floor, make another 2 or 3 meters, and then the Lions end up scoring off it. So he's 20 years old, and already he's showing things. And I love the comparison to Ardie Savea. And I think it's right that you can compare him to a younger one. No one else has done that, because you're not willing maybe to put it out there as comparing Henry Pollock to one of the best players that's ever played the game and one of the greatest players playing at the minute. So, but I think it's a great comparison.
I had this interesting conversation. I'm just going to go a bit off piece, Ricardo, because, boy, you annoy me, Victor. This is the 5th week in a row you're bringing up the bloody bomb squad. I promised we wouldn't talk about it. I want to ask you a question.
Guys can only come onto the field when there's an injury. Now you still want to bring Pollock off the bench. It's the same as the bomb squad. What's the difference? You're making a difference, or 9 coming on when the other 9 is tired. Then everyone should stay on.
I had an argument with another forward yesterday. I was having this beautiful lunch.
And before you go, what did you say about South Africa playing a centre on the loose forward? See, we're starting using even the backs in the forwards now.
Yeah, okay, so here's my philosophy. Do you want to fundamentally change the game? Because this is what my mate, so Fabio played for me with Italy. He's scrum coach for Benetton, very good scrum coach. And he said to me, and we were talking about you, Victor, and the bomb squad. And I said to him, so he said to me, oh, JK, the modern game, you can forget all that old shit of yours. He said, you give me a loose forward and I can make him competent and safe in the scrum.
Yes.
Right? So that he can cover. So I can make him, I'll repeat this, I can make him competent and comfortable and safe in the front row if we need him to cover. And I said, look, as a philosophy and as these athletes grow, I understand what you're saying, but I fundamentally disagree with it. And I fundamentally disagree with it because if we're going to have people covering loose forward and prop or wing and loose forward, we're going to have this one type of player. We're going to have this, big hooers like you, Victor, will not be part of the game. And you, Jim, you're both bloody mountains of men. We're going to have this stereotypical rugby player because we're all going to be moving around. So for me, it's a fundamental philosophy of the game. I don't think, and I'll give you this, Victor, I don't think the bomb squad comes into this because I think that's a tactical error. But having guys that are covering wing and fullback, that means we're not going to have Colby in the future because he's not going to be able to cover lock or he's not going to be able to cover loose forward. So for me, it's a fundamental philosophy of the game that we're changing. So we're going to be a one-size-fits-all in 10 years' time, which really worries me.
No, it is interesting I do love the bomb squad, and I know it's a topic of conversation, and even Eddie Jones was talking about these hybrid players, wasn't he? I think, was it Ben Early was talking about Jack Noel back in the day, about moving Jack Noel onto the flank, and never quite got to that point of doing it. And then you see with Rassie, with Andre Esterhazen at the weekend playing flank, and you look at the quality of some of these props now, like Ellis Genge could play in the centre. The athleticism that he's got and the speed and the power, and he plays very similar to Bundy Aki when he carries the ball. You know, if he was fresh, he could do that. But there's a traditionalist inside of me as well, Sir John, where is, you know, your Cheslin Colbys and your Brodie Retallicks, and I was going to throw my name into the mixer, I'm not, but your Victor Matfields and your Bacchus Bothas and your Darcy Grahams, for example. Like, that is what the game is. And as much as I do love rugby league and the NRL and stuff like that, but it is amazing still that you can see these 6'10" RG Snymans walking around next to a Cheslin Colby, and they're both what you would class as world class, the best that's ever lived rugby union players. And I never want to lose that, but I do understand the innovation, and I just think it needs to be clear across all the leagues and what we're doing. So I watched the top 14 final at the weekend. I don't know if you watched it, but I couldn't even work out that some of the players were going off after 30 minutes. The prop went off for Bordeaux, came back on 50, and then some of the players were kind of interchanging, and me and Bernard Jackman were going back and forth on like what, and he said it's just a bit of a free for all. Like, some of them come back on for blood or whatever, or later on in the game. So
I'm with you on the fundamentals, and look, I would always like there to be a place for a little fat prop that needs to play the game. A tall, thin guy that doesn't like contact like myself in the second row. A short, open sider. 9-10 small guys, wingers. I mean, and if you look at the South African team, that has come to the fourth again. I mean, our props are very good at scrummaging. We've got two of the biggest lock forwards. We've got exactly the type of loose forwards. You've got an open sider, blind sider. You've got an 8. We've got small wings again. That's dangerous with ball in hand. So, but then you go to the bench, and I think that's where the difference is. How you look at your bench. What impact can they make? Where can you use them? How can you use them to the best for your team? And I think that's where the innovation comes in. How do you use that bench? But when you go back to the starting 15, I mean, they need to be able to do the basics, the fundamentals that rugby is about. They need to be able to do that.
Answer me this then. Every single game I've watched in the last 4 weeks has had a yellow card.
Oh, that's stupid.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have gone over the top for safety, I believe. And, you know, we want to keep the players safe, but I think we've gone over the top. We haven't quite worked out what is intent and what is, you know, sort of a time speed issue. So can you tell me, is it safe to take a winger and put him in the loose forwards without completely understanding the play? You know, and I think my real question is, do World Rugby need to look at this? And I understand the innovation and go, are we fundamentally changing our game and who can play it in the future by allowing hybrid players? And my answer is, you will be. So off the bench, Victor, they'll start with off the bench, but you know these coaches. You've just been with Eddie Jones. He will be already looking at how he can hybrid another 10 players, because that's their job. That's what they do. So are we fundamentally risking the beautiful nature of our game, which is, you know, tall, skinny, you know, squat, you know, whatever? And I believe we are. And I think it's a massive, massive issue that we need to address.
I don't think we should look at South Africa specifically with this, because they are outliers in terms of the quality of athletes they've got. I think naturally we're getting closer to that anyway. You look at Tommy Freeman, for example, just to name one, or James Lowe to name another. Like, these lads are like back rowers now already. Andre Esterhazen is built the size of a back rower now. So I think we are, just with the professionalism of the game, which is probably the wrong word, we've been professional for a long, long time now. I suppose the athletic profile of some of the players that we're now seeing outside of South Africa, because you've got Curtly Aronson, you've got Cheslin Colby, you've got two of the smallest wingers profile point of view in the world, but the rest of the teams, it is starting to look like that. JK, it is. The props are now starting to look like the back rows. The centres are starting to look around the same size as some of the back rows as well. Blair Kinghorn is 6'4".
Did you see Asenati, our new tight head prop? He doesn't look like a loose forward.
I said South Africa. I said the South Africans are very different. So take away that. I know, but I know that you're big on this, JK. I've seen some of your comments around it. For me, I do like innovation, but I don't want to lose the essence of what the game has been built on, of all shapes and sizes. And I don't think we will. I think I say that, who knows where it will look in 10 years' time if Rassie Erasmus's plan works and we do see Eddie Jones come back to England and bring Jack Noel back playing from the wing into the back row. But yeah, I think naturally you'll know the innovation around coaches. Everyone's looking to see, right, can we have an Andre Esterhazen playing in the back row and have an extra back row on the bench? It doesn't really matter to South Africa because you do that anyway with your 7-1 split. But could that eventually fold into 8 behemoths on the bench and coming on and causing injury, I suppose, if players are fatigued?
Jacob, what's interesting for me is you always loved Super Rugby. And I felt in our days with Super Rugby, the players became almost like Rugby League, where, everyone had to be fast and athletic. Where the moment you go to Test match rugby, there was a place for slower, bigger, really physical players. A guy like Bakkies Botha at the end of his career struggled in Super Rugby. He went over to Toulon and won 3 Heineken Cups because the game was different. So, again, I think it's how you look at the game. If I look at Super Rugby in the days when it was at its best, you would have to pick 15 athletic guys. You can't pick a guy that's slow because you won't be able to keep up with the pace of the game. Where in Test match rugby, I think it goes a little bit to the other side, where physicality, set piece dominance, kicking, those things control the game and dominate the game. Where Super Rugby, some of the other competitions, the attacking part is where you dominate again.
I think it's a little bit different than that, Victor. I think what we've become. So I'm way older than you guys, but when we played, it was an aerobic game, right? And what we've turned into is an anaerobic game. So we're heading more towards, American football, where it's a stop-start. So when it becomes an anaerobic game, like if you ask the modern rugby player now to run 5K, they'd be dead, right? But you get them to do 25 times 40-meter sprint, they're fine. You get them to go to gym. I remember we'd go to the gym and I'd do 80 kilos on the bench press, Now, Bundy Aki, I'm sure, doing 180 or 200 on the bench. So, and this is one of the other arguments that I talk about. If we speed the game up, then you need all those different sizes. If we keep staying at an anaerobic game, then I've watched Bundy Aki. I probably get you to do this, Ricardo. Next week, let's put a shot of Bundy Aki playing for the Chiefs up, and him playing for the Lions last week. That is a different athlete, man. That is just a different human being. And that's because it's anaerobic. You can use all this power and all the strength, and you get time to recover.
Then you can put a camera on Damien D'Alende, and he's probably putting the most meters in on the pitch. I don't think all the players are the same. You pick them for what they're good at. Bundy Aki will never be a guy that runs 5-6 Ks in a game, but his impact with ball in hand is what you pick him for.
Victor, were you happy with the South African display against the Barbarians?
Yeah, I was actually a bit worried because they just came together. It was a pretty good Barbarians team. But I think the weather played into our hands a little bit. We know the Barbarians want to throw it around. And I I think in that weather conditions, it was a bit difficult. They made a lot of mistakes, and we know, South Africa from turnovers with that back three is just so dangerous. And I think they were very happy with the game. Maybe the scrum not as good. We're going through a phase where we need to change that front row. So I think scrum-wise, we would want to do better. But a few players that came back, I thought Lua de Jager was outstanding. Jesse Creel looked good. Sasha is doing fantastic at 10 as well. And then it's nice to see those two little wingers back. And with ball in hand, they just magic.
Did anyone else watch the game?
I just thought that, people said, the Barbars didn't.
Jacob, did you see Colby running over the one loose forward?
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Made as if he was going to pick and just boom.
Yeah. Crazy, eh? Yeah, no, like for me, I think that, people said the Barbars didn't front, or that's not true. The Barbars play a style of rugby, and they always play a style of rugby. You always have a great week. I just think that this is when the All Blacks won back to back, between 211 and 215, they were just this juggernaut. They had complete confidence in their systems, their coach. And no matter who we brought in, he was a world class straight away. And I just think that's where South Africa and Russia is at the moment. They're just in this balance of rugby that they're just going to be very, very hard to beat, which I'm so looking forward to. Their test matches, Victor, I don't know if it's going to get them ready for the championship, but I just agreed to do something for the test match in Auckland, which I think it's going to be an amazing series. That championship's going to be amazing this year.
That Auckland test match is probably going to be one of the biggest test matches in a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, championship's awesome. But it's globalise the season and all that, but I absolutely love the championship. And that's where, with Argentina as well, we've seen the quality of them from being in that tournament. We said that from the start. Like mass jeopardy. Yeah, it's iconic on this side of the world as well. So, yeah.
So that leads nicely into the All Blacks. So they play France this weekend, not the strongest side that France has ever sent down. They've already got a few injury problems. I think their average, they've almost half the team are uncapped. So, it's a massive challenge for France against the All Blacks. So what's the All Blacks mindset going into a game like that, JK?
Well, the All Blacks mindset's always been, especially early in the test series, is get our shit together. They won't be worrying too much about France. You can't watch any video. You don't know who's playing. Some of the players won't even know the opposition's names just because they've been concentrating on Super Rugby, and some of these guys are second or third pick. So it's a banana skin, really. What they'll be concentrating, I reckon, is getting a real flying start. Like with a French team, you got to bash them early, get on top of them early, make sure that the doubt they've got in their mind you confirm. But it's a hiding to nothing. It's interesting, Jim, what you said about the final the other day. The thing is with the French is they just flaunt the rules that we all stick by, and that's just the French, and they don't really give a shit. I think for Gautier, it's just a fantastic opportunity. The presidents of the club have said, don't take your top players. So he has an opportunity with nothing to lose to take all these young guys, and out of it, he's going to get 5 or 6 more test players. I don't think he'll be too concerned about the results. He'll be going, if I go home with 10 new players that can help me during the Six Nations, then I'm a happy man.
Yeah, it's a pity. I would have loved to seen a very strong French side playing the All Blacks. I've said it a few times. I think the French is probably the team to beat at the next World Cup. I think with the Toulouse players and the Bordeaux players mostly not coming over, there's a big gap between the next players. We've seen it at club level as well. Those two sides dominated completely. But with the French, you never know. They might just get that one game where they're up for it, where they play well. There's a lot of quality in France. They've got a lot of players. I think guys that played for La Rochelle that's won Heineken Cup trophies. So, I think maybe there's 1 or 2 games that might be more competitive than what the New Zealanders think?
I reckon for me, the biggest thing for the All Blacks that I'm excited about seeing is the loose forward trio. So, we've been talking since Ardie was like 3 years old, whether he should be a 7 or 8. And with Sam Cane leaving Luke Jacobson, I thought he's had an amazing season out. They've been talking about him playing 7, but it looks like that's not going to happen. It looks like they'll leave him at 8, and they might, put Karifi in. The other really interesting thing is whether they're going to put Rico Ioane on the wing and play Proctor at centre. I think they are two really interesting selection policies. You probably have to, because if you're saying to Rico Ioane, look, you're a number one centre, but we need some options, against a weakened French side is the best time to do it, right? Because at the end of the day, when you've only picked 2 specialist wingers, then at some stage you've got to go, okay, who is my third and my fourth winger? So I think those 2 selection pieces are the big ones for Razor this week, and I'm excited about a couple of the new guys getting a bit of a run and see if they're up to it.
Who's there nailed on 10, JK? So I know Richie's doing his thing. Is he still in Japan, isn't he? Is he?
Yeah, and the rumour is, Jim, that he's going to stay. I just think he's earning way too much money and he's winning. And I think if he tried to leave, they'd probably throw more money at him. I think it's Beauden Barrett, mate. I'm a big fan of them both. They're such completely different players. I think what I see in Beauden is just a little bit more composure when the team is not dominating. I see him a little bit more in the pocket, a little bit better at the kicking game at the moment. I love Damien's ability to crack open defences. I like him at 10. I don't like when you try and make him conform into a system. I like when he's free running. But when you're free running at a 10, you need you big buffheads to get us over the advantage line so we can look good, If that doesn't happen, and it's not happening a lot in international rugby, rightly so, because the defences are so good, then you need a pocket 10 that's going to kick. So I think they'll go with Beauden, unless they go, this is a good time for us just to keep Damien in there. I can't see a third. Perofeta's always injured, so that's a scary thing for New Zealand since the World Cup in 2011, when we lost all our tens, and now you carry 3. I can't see a real third one standing up. That's the issue for me. So I think Barrett first, Damien coming on, and possibly them just swapping positions. Barrett to fullback, Will Jordan to the wing, Damien McKenzie to first 5, which comes back to that hybrid athlete.
Jim, you've watched a lot more French rugby. What do you think of the team that they brought down here?
I haven't seen a huge amount. I've seen some of the big games this year and been watching the Champions Cup. So I watched Bordeaux's run in to winning the final, and then I watched the game at the weekend. I've seen bits of Toulon. I've got a few mates playing there as well. I mean, the French are stacked with absolute quality in the top 14 now. Victor knows he played in the league as well. It probably has a similar feel to it. It can be quite slow and quite physical, and it's week on week. There's a lot of games to get through. But when the quality steps up in some of their matches, it's unbelievable. Like in the Champions Cup, some of the performances we've seen has been incredible. And I'm kind of split on this because I've always seen test matches, especially between France and the All Black, as being the best of the best, like absolute premium. You want to see the best go up against the best. It's such a tough place to go. Vice versa, you saw we called it the Autumn Nation Series, where the All Blacks came up in November, playing against the very best French team, and we saw the iconic haka and the lights in Paris going down and the spotlight, and it's just brilliant. Just everything around the theatre of that helps. I'm going to say the phrase "grow the game" and these things. So to see a French team, when they are littered with some of the very best players in the world, even with the likes of Dupont being injured, go into New Zealand, who are hungry for it, right, to play against this French team because they've got history, haven't they, over the last few years. I'm slightly disappointed, but it's another thing that World Rugby need to work on. The calendar's so congested at the minute that players need a rest, right? You can't come off the back of playing 30 odd games, then flying, then into a test series, and then back without a decent pre-season. So they've got a bit of work to do with that. But yeah, two iconic teams. The French are brilliant. The top 14 is absolutely flying in terms of interest in the country. And as people know, I'm a massive fan of the All Blacks as well, and to see what quality they've got coming through. Because the thing is with the All Blacks as well, is you always think about the 10 and the 7 and the likes of Ardie Savea or whatever. I'll be interested to see what second rows come through, because any New Zealand team that I've seen or any World Cup winning or world class or dynasty has been based in and around the second rows. I think for me, when I go through my career, thinking like Chris Jack sticks out, for example, and then you carry on with the likes of Ali Williams and Sam Whitelock and Brodie Retallick. I'm looking at this kind of All Blacks team as well when you're talking about the likes of Bowden Barrett and Mackenzie and Rico Ioane, unbelievable talent. But I do wonder who's coming through in the second row there. So I'll be watching it, and yeah, as I say,
Jim and Victor, you're going to love Fabian Holland. You're both going to love him. Just a big man.
But do you think they'll play him ahead of Faye and Barrett?
No, but you guys are just going to love
Okay.
him. I think he's, who reminds me of a little bit of an old school player. He's a big body, goes hard, just works hard, nothing flash. And I think it's what we need, Jim. I think it's what we need in the second row. One thing that the South Africans don't have to worry about is massive men like Victor coming through and like you, Jim. But it's an issue for us. Our big men, they're going to basket, or we don't have those real big bodies. So Fabian Holland, you'll love. Good young kid. He's only 22. Might take him a little while, Victor, to get into the test arena, but he reminds me of a young Brodie Retallick. So I'm pretty excited about him. And if there's a weakness in New Zealand rugby, it's those big men coming through. So hopefully he gets a bit of a game, Victor, and you guys can have a look at him.
And will it be an option for them to move Barrett back to 6 then, or not really?
I mean, I don't know. This is me, and I'm a bit old school. I like a hard-working lock and a tall lock. I like a dancing centre and a penetrating centre. We've seen that changed a wee bit. So I like Barrett in that role, in that shorter lock role, that hard-working role. I also like a loose forward that's got a bit of a step and a bit of a pace. Frizzell, those types of players. So I think when you're looking for balance, I don't think they'll move Scott Barrett. I think he's captain. I think they'll keep him there, and then they'll have, Tupouai and hopefully Fabian Holland coming through would be my guess.
Just to sum up, gentlemen, there is some talk around, in the Super Rugby competition, the TMOs took a bit of a back seat and let the referees run the game. Apparently that's going to change in the international season. The TMOs are going to have a bit more to say. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, as long as they just make the decisions quick, I think. We don't want to have stoppage after every facet of game and says, let's stop, let's have a look. If they like in the ear and they see something happen, call it and let's go on. And then, I mean, Jake and myself's view on yellow and red cards. I mean, this week with Eddie, I said, listen, you have to have at least 20% of your training session looking at how do we do things when you get a yellow card, because it's going to happen in a game these days. You always at some stage play with 14 men, and it's still a pity. So hopefully we won't see more cards, but if they can help with quicker decisions, that will be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, we need to look at the yellow card. We need to have reports. So if a TMO can look at the game and he sees an incident that should be put on report, then he should just say to the referee stops quickly. He's already got the video footage ready, and he shows him. Even if it's after a couple of minutes, if it's the right thing for the game, then that's fine. What we're getting now is all these stoppages, and every single game has a yellow card. So 15 against 15 is now a thing of the past. And is that how we want our game? What the answer is, I think the answer is put guys on report. TMOs are like referees. You know, we have now this safety conduct interpretation, and every TMO is different on what they'll interpret. So I think we've got a bit of work to do there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And there's been some frustrations not as frustrating as it was a couple of years ago. They seem to be more lenient, but there's definitely, in the big games, there's going to be a yellow card, and you're just kind of hoping that it isn't going to be a red card. I'm all for a red card if it's a dog shot, or if it's a punch, or if it's a stamp or a gouge. But some of these, a lot of them are subjective. And I think even still, if you hear the commentators or the people doing the podcasts, or you go online and have a look, people are still split on their opinion on what is a yellow card and what is a red card. So it's still a little bit of a minefield. And I just thought we'd be at the point now of understanding. I do like certain aspects of the TMO. I think it builds a little bit of jeopardy in the stadium, especially when it comes to it coming out across the announcement and stuff like that. It does build a little bit of hysteria in the stadium, but again, it's kind of a mix and matches. It some games have it, some games don't. It's some games are stopping constantly. Some TMOs want to be involved a lot more. I just think we need some clear kind of guidelines about how it's all going to work.
Right, and just one last question. I told you, Jim, that we'd need you for about 10 minutes. We're about an hour and a half in.
No, I'm good.
There was some talk about a golden point system in the Lions series, that if it came down to like it did in New Zealand a few years ago, everything was all square, they'd play up for a golden point. So it sounds like the Lions aren't so keen on it. What are your thoughts?
JK, you're shaking. You're old school, traditionalist.
Oh, look, I think for a competition that you play all year, like like your Super Rugby or like your championship, yeah, sure, I get it. You need to have a winner. But the Lions is a special tournament. It's a special team. It's a special environment. And if the series should be drawn because it's drawn, so be it. Like, it's a fair result. The result against, New Zealand drawn series, was I disappointed? Did I think the ref get it wrong from the kickoff? Yeah. But did it deserve to be a draw? Yeah. So...
Yeah, I was in New Zealand, and I remember it was unbelievable what a series it was down there. And then obviously the one in 2021 was COVID, so no one got to see it, and we lost a bit of momentum around the line. So it's great that we're back and going down to Australia, but being in New Zealand for that test, the final test as well specifically, and the draw, I was a little bit like, it would have been nice to just come away with having been a winner. But again, with JK, there's a part of me which is a traditionalist, which I like, and that part of it still exists. And the Lions made the decision that they didn't want to go to a golden point. But again, like commercially and for the real jeopardy, there's a part of me that wants to see a winner come out of this series in Australia. And I think it's going to be a lot tighter than people think. I think a year ago or 18 months, definitely, they were thought it's going to be a 3-0 series win for the Lions because Australia are so poor. I think Australia have closed that gap physically with some of the athletes that they've got. I think we've seen that the Lions are going to not struggle, but there's a few question marks over some of the combinations. I wouldn't want to see a draw. I want to see a winner. I think we will anyway. I don't think it will be like the All Blacks one, but who knows?
Now, I wouldn't like to see a change. If they had draws in the past, they must still have draws. So yeah, I'm with JK on this one. Where look, I loved in the URC the kickoff. There was so many emotion about it, and it's actually like Jim said. I think commercially it actually brought something to the table. But in a Lions series, it's like in the old days you could have had a draw. There was 2-1 or 2 games were won, 1 was a draw. So I don't think we can change that.
Right. Well, when you start agreeing with JK, Victor, it's time to finish the show. So that's the end of Rivals.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, let's go.